Hi, I'm Trisha Morris at Club Scrap. This is the Photo Drop Box Workshop. This is actually part 2 because we did have a little bit of a homework video. If you didn't get a chance yet to do your homework, don't worry about that. Just follow along with the project steps as we go. And especially if you are newer to projects like this, I recommend you just sit back, relax, watch the project get made, and then just take mental note along the way about all the steps, and then you can follow again at your very own pace. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is the finished photo drop box, and of course it has 4 outer sides that are fully decorated. You can see the little wooden feet at the bottom, and then each little book that's inserted has a cute little handle, and when you pull it out, it's all decorated, and the pages fly out like in a trifold setup. When we finish the project together today, you'll have that basic structure down, and then you can spend your time and your pace using the materials provided to finish the decor. And during the homework phase, all we did was took all of the bookboard components that were provided in the Craft Along kit. So that's the base, 2 long walls, 2 short walls, 2 shelves, and then 3 book spines. We painted the edges of all of them after they were assembled with white acrylic paint. That's a completely optional step. And I also painted the wooden feet of my project. If you haven't done that homework step yet, don't worry. The link to the instruction video is included in your instructions, which can be picked up from our website. Okay, then the rest of the kit, as you can see here, has all kinds of things. We got some photo mats here, ribbon. You can see all the embellishments that are included in the kit, as well as the little hardware. We'll get to all of those embellishments later. For now, we're going to do a classic Club Scrap move, and that will be to prep all of these papers for trimming. As we trim, we're going to sort the items that we cut into 4 different pockets that correspond to different phases of assembly. I'm also using my favorite trimmer here. It's a real worker, so I'm going to take the lip of this accordion pocket file, pop it underneath my trimmer here. So let's just sort the paper in the order we'll trim it first. So we're going to begin with the teal. Now there's quite a few shades of blues and teals in this kit. So the teal is going to be that darkest shade, and you just take 1 sheet of that. Then we're going to go with the slate. So that's that lighter version of the teal. So let's grab 1 sheet of that, and then next we'll take 2 sheets of aqua. So that's that brighter blue shade, blue-green color. So 2 of those. Then we'll cut the teal, the other teal, and the other slate, 2 green, okay? Then we have the lighthouse print, and now there are 2 each of 2 gorgeous prints in this kit. So I'm just gonna take the one that has the lighthouse on it and put it face down. And then we have cut aparts. So here we have the one that has the scroll on it. We'll cut that one next. And finally, this last one that has the netting on it, cut that. Then you'll have 3 sheets of paper left over, and that's awesome because you can use these at will to decorate the inside of your books. I'm going to set those aside. Then take the remaining stack of paper that we sorted and flip it back over to where we started with the teal. Since this paper is going to wrap itself around the box, we want to make sure that it wraps with the grain direction of the paper. So let's figure out what that is. And to do that, I just hold the paper by the edge and give it a little wiggle. Notice I'm at the center of an edge, and then compare it to a neighboring edge. Now this direction, it's real stiff, but this way it flops very easily. So when you place this paper into your trimmer, make sure it flops easily from the top to the bottom, not left to right, but top to bottom. And let's trim at 10 inches. So always make sure you're looking at the inches and not the centimeters. I always try to warn people when they're starting out, make sure the paper's level at the top, ridge, push down on this clear bar before you slice, and then move down to the 5-inch mark here. So we cut at 10 and 5. All right, this created the 2 outside wraps. They're gonna make 1 long piece going around the outside of the box. Take both of these pieces. I'm gonna have you put them in pocket A if you're using this, and make sure you can still see the numbers and letters on the side here with the paper kind of angling off to the right. And then you have this larger piece left over, this strip. We'll put that in pocket D. Everything going into that pocket is for your own designing purposes. Now, we're moving on to the slate. And this time we won't be folding this paper in any way, so we don't need to worry about grain. And our first cut here is going to be at 10.5. Be mindful that every vertical column on the base of your trimmer here is 1/4 inch, so you need to go to the left 2 columns to find 10.5. Stabilize. And then 6 3/4 is next. 6 3/4. Now rotate, we're gonna cut out a bunch of 1-inch markers here. So we'll start out at 11, and then 10, 9, just going in 1-inch increments, 8, 7, 6, okay, don't do that, do the next one. Then go all the way down to 3 1/2, 3 1/2, and then rotate the piece that's in the trimmer base and cut it 6 1/2. Take this piece you just made and place it in pocket A, the one that was in the trimmer base, and then you did have this little piece that fell off the end, and I'm so sorry to tell you, I didn't use it, okay? So that is a scrap. This next one is large enough, we're gonna save it and put it in pocket D. Then we have all of these 1-inch strips. Just place those in pocket B, B as in boy. Now you have this wider strip here. We're gonna trim this one at 7. This goes in pocket A. And the remaining little piece that fell, D, along with the longer strip, D. And the reason I have you do this trimming for yourself is that it allows you to gain the skills needed in order to recreate this project again for yourself with any Club Scrap page kit, which is super cool. Now this paper is going to be folded at some point, so we need to worry about the grain, not worry about it, but just, you know, take it into consideration. So I'm gonna see where it flops easiest. I have that, and I want it to flop easiest from top to bottom, just like that other sheet that we did. And I'm gonna take that second sheet of aqua, perform the same test. So now both sheets are stacked neatly, dipping from top to bottom, and we're gonna cut them at the same time at 11 1/4. Now, when you're doing 2 sheets at once, it's extra important that you stabilize on that clear bar. And then we're gonna slide down to 6 1/2. 6 1/2. These 2 larger sheets are gonna become the pages on the inside of your book, and they need to be scored. So I'll set them aside. And then I'll take this large piece. We'll cut at 10. And it's both pieces, by the way, 10. And 6 1/2. So these 2 pieces that are large, pocket A, and then the other 2 pieces as well that are medium, pocket A, and then you have the 2 smaller and the little strips, D. D as in dog. And we're moving on to the teal. Checking grain, I want it dipping top to bottom. That's stiff, this is floppy. And then I want it flopping on this slate color at the same time. So they're together, the teal and the slate, stack neatly, and cut at 6 1/2. Again, these become pages that are scored, so I'm gonna set them aside. And then all of this goes in pocket D for our decorating enjoyment. And we get to repeat all that with the greens. So check for floppiness, dipping top to bottom, top to bottom. I'll just point out on the diagram when that matters, I'll have the arrow pointing in that direction I want the paper to dip most easily. Stack neatly, trim at 6 1/2 again, stabilize, set this larger piece aside to be scored, and the slightly smaller piece in D. And now we've reached the lighthouse print. Now, if you're working with some other kit, with some other print, you may want to study this a little bit and maybe make changes. But I have this all planned out, and I need you to place this print into the trimmer with the lighthouse at the top of the print here. The lighthouse should be on the bottom, okay? And you can do the same kind of planning for yourself. I mean, but I would, usually the top of the print would want to be on your left. Okay, let's cut at 9 1/2. And 4 3/4. 4 3/4. Okay, now let's rotate this piece so it's horizontal. And we'll trim at 10 3/4 and 7. Take both of these pieces, the larger and the medium, place in pocket A, and then there is a small scrap, or you can put it in D, whatever you prefer. Then take this next strip and we'll put it in with the lighthouse portion on our left. Once again, 10 3/4 and 7. stacking these two flavors, the large and medium. Pocket A, once again the small, and then this last strip here. All of this goes in pocket D. D as in dog. Now we've reached our cut aparts. One thing I want to mention is that on the perimeter of the cut apart, there's text that says remove paper outside of corner cutting guides. So you can do that by just lining up that gray line, that gray guideline at the top and bottom to remove it. And when I remove that, for starters, I cut shy of the line, and then I go back after my 4th rotation, because we're gonna do this on all 4 sides. And then I'll do my final removal to turn this into a 12 by 12 inch sheet. So now I'm just going to go around that perimeter. Now I can look over here at the 12-inch mark, and that lines up with my trimmer blade here on the right. And again, I'm just cutting off that last bit so that we start out with a nice 12 by 12, and you can just get rid of these little scraps. When we start trimming this piece, I want to make sure that your scrolls are on the left and your lanterns are on the right. And the instructions for this are on the following page, and it tells you exactly what numbers to trim at. So we'll start out at 10 3/4, then 10 1/4, 9 3/4, and you can see I'm just simply separating the arch strips. 8 1/2, 7 1/4. So if you're unsure, just kind of double check that the blade's not going to slice through any artwork. 5 1/4. And 3 1/4. Rotate, and we're just going to cut this at 6. So you have 2 nice looking scrolls you can use. I actually trimmed mine out. Grab all the rest of those strips and place everything in pocket C. So you can pause me for a moment while you remove the outside edges of the second sheet of printed cut aparts. Again, when we start the trimming process, I like to have the narrowest piece on the right. So it should say lighthouses right up here. And we'll cut at 10 1/2, 7 3/4, and 4. Rotate this piece so the lighthouse is on the right. We'll trim at 10 and 6. Gather up these little pieces. There are 3 of them. Everything in C, that's for all of our decorating with these cut aparts. The next one, make sure every moment matters, is on the right, and we'll cut at 9 1/4, 6 1/2, 3 3/4. We provide these cut aparts every month with our kits to help you finish your pages and projects more easily. And then place all of that in pocket C. This next strip, make sure the lighthouse is on the right. We'll cut at 9 3/4, 6 1/2, and 3 1/4. These are your journaling prompts, so you remember to take note of things happening in your pictures, and a pocket C on that. This last one, make sure those little circles are on the right, and we'll cut at 9 1/4. Now these little guys, you can take scissors and just trim them out. Those are designed, once you cut on that little shadowy line, that will fit right inside the little setting that we have. And then you can insert with some bookbinding glue, add the glass dome, and it makes a beautiful embellishment. I'll show you here on the final project. So there's how that was used. And boy, it really adds a lot. So the 3 little pieces of art have homes on the 3 bezel settings and glass domes that we've included. Again, you can put all of this in pocket C. And we have completed our trimming for the entire project. Let's grab our score pal. And we don't have a lot of scoring to do, thankfully, for this project. We just have those larger pieces we set aside that grow up to become the inside pages of our book. So I'm going to work 1 sheet at a time, and all of the scoring measurements are the same. So if you are working with a paper that has texture, this is smooth, so it doesn't matter. But if it has texture, place the texture right side up, or a print maybe, put that right side up. We'll score it 4 1/2, 4 3/4, and 9 1/4. How about we practice that again? 4 1/2, 4 3/4, and 9 1/4. How about we do that again? 4 1/2, 4 3/4, 9 1/4, You'll notice I'm not using the stylus or the bone folder. It's a plastic piece that comes with the score pal. I like to use a round tip stylus. We do carry these. I like the way it engages with the channel. And then as you're scoring, I like to hold my scoring tool like a pencil. And then that way I can control the pressure really well. The heavier the paper, the more pressure. 4.5, 4 3/4, 9 1/4. I have to pay attention during this. Don't get lazy because I wasn't, and then I had one sheet that was wrong on the last one I made. So 4.5, 4 3/4, 9 1/4, and one last. This is our 6th page. 4.5, 4 3/4, 9 1/4, and there you have it. These can go in pocket B for when we're ready to install the pages in our book. We're now moving on to page 4 of our instructions. So we got rid of our score pal, and I've got my box already assembled. If you haven't done that yet, the instructions for that are on page 3. It's pretty easy to follow. And once you create your box, and paint is optional. Again, if you have a paintbrush and acrylic paint, use that to prep everything, and then you've got this nice sturdy box. But one way to make it even more sturdy is to wrap it with our items that we find in pocket A. So take everything out of pocket A for starters, and you're going to look for those 2 large pieces. I think they're like 5 by 12 in size. I like to apply glue to a known area, so I'm going to do this method. But the thing is, you have to work quickly, so maybe just watch the technique and then give it a whirl. So I will take the bookbinding glue right from the bottle and just apply a fair amount. If it's too little, it'll just dry. The paper is quite thirsty. And now I'm using a foam brush to spread the glue. And notice I'm working quickly and thoroughly. Okay, I can see right away that I'm gonna need to add a little more glue. This paper is very, very thirsty. So again, I'm brushing to the edge, because if you don't have glue to the edge, it's not gonna stick on the edge, and we really want it to thoroughly laminate itself onto the boards. Okay, so I'm gonna pick this up, and I did get a little glue on my outside of my paper. I'll take care of that with some overlap. Okay, so now I have my box tipped onto its short side, and I'm gonna center this top to bottom at about the center of this sidewall here. And then I'm just going to burnish it, and then I'll turn the box, and then I have to work kind of quickly as well here too. I do not want that glue to dry. And just so that you know, we will also be adding artwork to this. So if there's any stray marks or anything like that, you don't really have to worry too badly about it. But we just want to try to keep it to a minimum. Okay, with that done, you have the option of grabbing a bone folder, and then you can maybe do a little extra burnishing just to make sure that there aren't any air spots in there where you got to worry about. And again, I just placed it kind of center on the short wall. And there's just enough paper. If we repeat that, it's gonna overlap at about 3/4 of an inch for the remainder. So we're gonna repeat that. Now I'm gonna shoot to place this right into the same spot where the last paper was. And I'll apply maybe a little more generously this time, now that I know. It's always a learning curve, isn't it? And again, I'm just gonna make long strokes. Oh, this is much better. A much better amount. Maybe a little too much. I don't know. This is pretty good. Going to the edge. There we go. Nice. That was much better. Okay. Now I did get a little glue in my hands because I had to support the paper somehow, right? So I'm just gonna try to work carefully here, bringing this back into scene. And working now a 3/4 of an inch overlap on this side. Line it up carefully top to bottom. Just give that a little burnish. Maybe wipe my hands on my side seam of my skirt. Water soluble, it will wash. One of the many things I love about this bookbinding glue that we have here. It's a fabulous product. And then once again, make that final turn. Oh, look at that. Oh. It lines up beautifully, another 3/4 of an inch on this side. And I know it's 3/4 of an inch because I did the math. And now I'll take my bone folder and do a little burnishing. You know, honestly, the trimming phase of this is probably the most work. Now it's just kind of smooth sailing, pun intended, right to the finish line here. Just make sure you get those corners especially. Again, that's why you want really good application of the adhesive to the edge. You don't want those edges popping out, do you? I know I don't. It's already looking quite nice, don't you agree? Now remember, we emptied everything out of pocket A, and it's going to be pretty clear what goes where when you start looking at the sizes of these pieces. Let's begin with the two larger prints, and you'll find that they nest right onto the long wall on the outside of the box. Now, a couple ways you can adhere. I don't recommend the bookbinding glue full application. If you have a little needle tip applicator though, I fill it with our bookbinding glue, and this is such an efficient way to nest things. I'm just gonna go around the perimeter and then squiggle my way through the entire thing and place it centered onto the teal on the outside of your box. Or if you're working with a different kit, because that's the fun part, you can take any club scrap kit and recreate this project in a completely different style. And then of course this beauty, I love this print so much. I think this box would be great to commemorate maybe an annual trip that you take somewhere, a vacation, a destination wedding. It could be beautiful. Okay, centering once again and furnish. The fact that I'm using a bookbinding glue allows a little bit of extra time to scooch if needed. And then I will add my adhesive to the back of this shorter print, or the smaller print rather, and that's what goes on the sidewalls. So again, all of your seams are completely covered and no one will be the wiser. Flip to the other side, find the other print. This one doesn't have any art on it other than just the texture and color, which then gives me an opportunity for more embellishing at the end. Or you can just leave it plain, totally up to you. That's the fun part. Okay, what about all these other pieces? Well, let's take a look. We've got the larger aqua piece. That is designed for the inside long wall. So if you were to center that in there with like equal margin on top, bottom, left, and right, that's a perfect fit. Again, this is why I prefer to use the liquid adhesive rather than a one and done type of a two-way like an ATG or something like that. This is going to give you a nice adhesion, but it's going to give you just a couple of seconds to fine tune your placement, which when you're kind of flying blind like this, it's nice to have that where you can scooch it a little bit this way or that. Make sure it's level at the top and centered left to right. That looks pretty good. Then I can just burnish it, and you can even bring your bone folder into the box to make sure you have good adhesion. Nice. Now flip it around and I'll repeat that for the second little nesting panel here. And I found this is just a nice, easy way to ensure that the box is beautifully decorated without having to do much complicated wrapping. And if you've done like the drop spine box with me, that is wrapped. And you can do that, and it's very rewarding. It looks beautiful, but I think this is a wonderful alternative. Of course, now we have two more aqua, and I bet you're loving the mathematical success here of all that trimming we did earlier. Means that every little piece is trimmed and ready to go from pocket A to decorate the outside of this box. I'm going to drop that in, and that's going to be centered left to right, so I have time to adjust. Very little margin. We're putting this against the shelf of the box, which ends up holding our little book spines. So that's kind of flush at the top edge of the shelf, and that's intentional. And then once again, our final inner short wall cover. Just drop that in there. Center. Oh, it's coming together so quickly. I hope you agree. All right, now we have two more pieces left. One is smaller. The larger one is designed to sit right on the bottom of the box. So I can do my perimeter glue here. You get the idea. I could probably just fast forward myself through the process, but it's fun to share some tips and conversation along the way here. Centering, I can see I missed a little spot with my painting, so I can maybe go back with a paint pen and touch up later. Okay, and then I can add my final lamination here. The more glue that you use, the longer you have to adjust before it's going to start bonding. And when it bonds, there's no turning back. So the first box I made, my bottom piece ended up a little off center, and I'm a little type A, in case you haven't noticed. I was bummed. But so this time when I bring this down in here, I'm going to do my best to lightly place it so I can scooch it around as needed. And then burnish. And this is why we painted just the edges white. It leaves everything looking very completed, but we didn't have to paint the whole entire thing, just like the edges and the corners and the sides, you know, just the only visible areas. Cool, right? So now would be a good time to turn the box upside down and add the 4 feet, because we're going to be setting aside the box while we work a little bit on the actual books. To add the feet, I like to just put a little bit of glue kind of right at the point of each corner and bring the foot to the glue. I'm just going to have the foot just a little ways from the edge of the paper on all 4 corners. Again, you don't have to paint the feet, but again, you don't have to paint those feet, but it just adds a little bit of an extra touch. And we're just going to set that aside. Now from Pocket B, you can take out those scored pages, and then these are little covers that will be going onto your spines. Before we laminate these papers onto the spines, I'm going to have you measure and find the center of each one of these boards. I'm going to be using my grid ruler to find that center. It's going to be a little bit weird because the width of the piece is 6 7/8, so almost 7. And that means that on our ruler, we just have to make sure that we're a little shy of the 3.5 inch mark on each side with the 0 in the center. So this is 3.5, and I'm a little shy of that on each side. And then for the vertical center, it's going to be a little bit more than 1/2 inch. So here we go. We're just shy of 3.5 on the sides and a little more than 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch is 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes plus another 1/2 cube. And sorry about that weird measurement, but it's just, you know, a fact of life. Okay, that is the center of my board. What I could do at this point is just, I mean, if you have any doubt at all, double check. Okay, so I'm at 3, I'm just shy of 3.5 on this side, just shy of 3.5 on this side, just over 1/2 inch here, and just over 1/2 inch here. Okay, you don't want to mess this up because this is going to end up being the template for all of your other pieces. So I'm using a Crop-A-Dile. You could also use a screw punch, a Japanese screw punch, but you need to punch right through the center of that hole. Okay, then you can take this piece so that you don't have to do all that crazy measuring every time, and mark it with a pencil. Do the same for the other spine, just mark that. And then just come at it with the same exact way. I'm using the small 1/8 inch hole on the Crop-A-Dile. I did do the large hole as well, and it worked fine as well, but I think that we'll just go with the smaller one because we can. And now we have our pieces punched through the center. We'll have to transfer that punched hole through the papers, but what I found was once I laminated this with both papers, I couldn't get this through without scraping the paper. So, you know, learn from my experience, okay? So I'm taking my bookbinding glue, and I'm just gonna run it across this entire spine piece. Make sure you get that perimeter, and center it onto the spine. Now you're gonna have a little reveal here. It's gonna be a 1/16 of an inch basically. And because I used bookbinding glue, I can adjust the positioning here. And then if you happen to have like an awl or a paper piercing tool, you want to make sure that that paper is dry enough, but pierce to transfer the location of that hole. Then you'll add the spine from the other side. center it again onto the spine piece on the other side, so it's covered on both edges. And you may want to just do one side of all three and then pierce, because if the paper hasn't really bonded yet, it could come up. You'll know what I mean when you work with it. Just transfer that hole through both sides on all three spines, covering them the same exact way. So apply the glue to the spine piece, cover it, pierce, cover, pierce. Go. Now, another thing you might want to do is just shove like a pencil or something a little larger into that to make sure that the paper is kind of going just all the way through the hole and not left on the outside of the hole. Again, doing this, you'll know exactly what I mean. It just kind of finishes it off nicely on the outside. Here are those 6 scored inside pages. Let's fold on the score line. Before you do, just make sure you know where the bump of the score is located. That's the raised portion of the score line, and make sure you put that raised portion on the inside of the fold. So again, this is raised, so bury that bump inside the fold, and then just make sure the paper is level top to bottom before you make the final crease. I never implicitly trust a score line to be perfectly level, but it certainly does help the process and helps me score and fold the right places. But now I have a tri-folding page with a little spine, just a little one here, and then when you open it, this flags out to the right. Do that for all 6 of your pages. Once you have all that work done, you can divide your pages into 3 piles of 2 pages each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just I'm kind of mixing it up a little bit. And it's just total designer preference. It does not matter if you want to match them up any way you like. Now I'm taking my spine, and if there's one side or another that you prefer to be on the inside of the book, I don't know, I'll pick mine. Okay, these would be the insides of my book spines. So let me show you where we're headed. Here we have one of the finished books, and do you see how the 2 spines are attached and there's the space in the middle? So these spaces allow for the hardware to be installed, but also for dimensional placement. So you can put like 1/4 of an inch of stuff on these pages and not interfere with the functionality of the book. One of the things I love about this spine spacing, and we're going to be installing the spine of the page onto the spine of the book, okay? So that little 1/4 inch scored area, that's where we're going to apply it. Now, the best way I think to do that is to do it while the page is flat. So I've got it flat and the spine is right here on the back. And then when I attach it here, I align the top, bottom, and left clearances here. So I'll flip this back over, and then I'm going to apply glue to my 1/4 inch spine area with my needle tip applicator. Again, that wet glue allows me to adjust the placement a little bit as needed. Then with my spine here and ready to go, I'm going to flip this back over and just place it on the left edge of my spine. And I've got about an eighth of an inch at top, bottom, and left. And that gives me all kinds of decorating room. I'll burnish that a little bit and then open the page. Burnish again on the inside of that 1/4 inch scored area. And then bring the page back this way and burnish again. It's a little hard to see because the page and the spine are the same color. That will only happen this one time. Now, do you see how that was attached? It's just on that 1/4 inch area. It's a really good bond with the bookbinding glue. And then I'm going to go to the next page. So I'm going to get this out of the way, fold to my left. And now I'm going to install this page. And if you care, you know, if you wanted to, the wing to always wing out from the right. So now we have to pay attention to where our spine is going to be. Here's my spine, and I'm going to attach it so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to have it flat here, winging out this way, just kind of however you want your page to be in. That's up to you, but I like to install in this direction so I can see my perimeter, and you want to line up that page with the one that came before it. So I'm going to going back so I can see the scored spine. Add my wet glue to the spine, flip it back over, and I can see on the right exactly what I'm doing. About a quarter of an inch, or I'm sorry, an eighth of an inch, top, bottom, and right, and then level with the page before it. Give it a little burnish. And again, the wet adhesive allows me to make adjustments as needed within a reasonable amount of time. I'll open, burnish, open, burnish. Now my second page is installed in my first book. You get to repeat that now for the next one. So again, just find your flat area, your wing. I want my wing opening to my right. That's just my preference. Apply glue and place. And repeat for the facing page on the second book. And you get to practice all of that a third time. Excellent. Now all three books have their pages installed. Then find your hardware. So it's a set with a handle and the screw. It's also helpful if you can dig out a Phillips head screwdriver. That's the one with the pointy tip. And I'll start out with the screw, go to the inside of my book spine and thread the screw through the hole that you prepared to the other side. And then take the handle and kind of turn it onto the screw. Just get it started. Once you have it sort of started, then go back and hold it on this side, open, and then you're holding the handle and then take the Phillips screwdriver to tighten it. You can also do this after decorating the book. I didn't. I actually installed the handle at this point. It didn't interfere too badly. It worked pretty well. And then you repeat that, of course, for the remaining screw and handles. Always unscrewing the screw side in on the inside and then the handle on the outside. You're not going to believe this, but that was the last step, basically, of the assembly. So now I take my box and I have my pages, and now the spine will rest on top of the shelf, and the handle allows you to pick it up and remove and look at each book one at a time as you wish. Isn't that fun? It just fits like a glove. It's so perfect, so beautifully decorated. And speaking now of decoration, let's talk that through a little bit. If you are working with a standard monthly page kit from Club Scrap, your kit comes with a dozen photo mats trimmed to 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And I designed the size of this book to accommodate a nested panel or photo mat, that is, however you want to call it, onto each page of the book. Not the wing, but the page itself. And you could even install them on the wing to increase the real estate in the book. Plus you have lots of extra papers to do that with as well, including everything from the D pocket and the 3 prints. So the photo mats are your first step to embellishing and sort of adding a nice feel to the book. What I did is, since there's 3 of each color, you have 3 books, I just separated these into 3 piles and I assigned 1 pile to each book. This was just a clever way to help me get started with my book decor. So I'm doing that little 3-pile sort. Then from the C pocket, that's where you placed all of those printed cut aparts, your journaling prompts, those title strips, and you have those fun little things for the bezel settings, things like that. And then you have like all of these great things to choose from for decorating the book. What I suggest is choosing what you want on the outside of your photo drop box. So in my case, I used the starfish in the bezel and the one that says every moment matters. And then I used sky above our heads, sand beneath our feet, life is good, along with this embellishment, as well as the wood ship's wheel that came in your kit. So what you could do is pull those items from your cut apart. So every moment matters, the little rowboat, and sky above our heads. Oh, that's this one. Now, as you can see, this started out as a 12-inch strip that I adapted to fit within the face of the box. I think that's like 7 inches-ish, something like that. Okay, so I'm gonna set those aside. Those 3 little things for the outside cover. Just trying to help show you a little bit about how I go about this. Now remember I had those 3 piles of photo mats? Now in my pile here, I have long strips. So I'm taking the long strips and I'm gonna divide them into those 3 piles as well. So I have 3 long strips. Now I'm gonna add these here, 1 extra there, and 1 there. I'm gonna put that one in that pile. Then I have larger pieces of artwork. So I'll add 1 of those to each pile. And then I have medium-size art. So I'll put those here. And then I have 3 pieces of journaling prompts. So each pile will get 1 of those. And then I have 3 pieces of artwork left. There you go. Now I have a well-allocated pile of embellishments for each of the 3 books. Of course, you have your ribbon that can be utilized, prioritized from the outside of your book to the inside. You have metal embellishments. You have buttons, a second ship wheel, more of the bezel settings. You get what I'm saying? These kits come with everything you need to fully embellish the book. Now let's take just a moment and tour the finished project. So here's the one that we made together, and that's how far we've gotten. The rest is your own creativity at play. So again, I did paint the ship's wheel and added this. Now, do you see that slate blue paper behind it? That came from the D pocket. So anytime you see plain paper, it's all in there in the D pocket to be used. I used some foam adhesive after I trimmed this piece out. Oh, I didn't even mention this. I used the Friends, Sun, Sand, and Sea that I trimmed it to fit right on there. And then here we have, I used a corner rounder here on this, attached it to the edge with the bezel. Now let's take a look at these books on the inside. So a ribbon, again, used on the outside where it will interfere the least. And I wrapped it around the photo mat before attaching it. Trim this. Again, you'll have to measure and then just trim the pieces to fit. You can see I even did a double edition of a mat on the flap. My flap here swung out to the left. I didn't like that as much. So I even added a border strip along the side here and another one here. A print trimmed to 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 there. And then I decorated the back fully. I love how that turned out. The next one, again, leaving room for a photo on the front here, but with the charm. That's a leftover piece from what I did on the front of the box. That's the ship that came off the end. Love how that turned out. Again, I've got the nested piece, the scroll. My page wings out to the left again. Back all fully decorated. By the time I was done with decor, I had almost no paper left. Look how sweet that is. Utilizing all the prints and embellishments and the cut aparts. Very successful little project here. Just absolutely stunning. Now the super cool thing is that these instructions are recyclable. So I took the Club Scrap special edition kit called Cherish, which is a wedding theme. And I followed the exact same instructions and created this stunningly gorgeous box. I once again did trouble with the acrylic paint. It just gives it a nice finished look. Absolutely love the use of the ribbon and the laser cut here. And then again, each book has been meticulously decorated, and I followed the same protocol of distributing the goodies and the cut aparts into 3 piles, along with all the other scraps, I just kind of randomly was able to use. And oh, it's just so stunning. I love this. And what a beautiful wedding gift this will be. If you attend a wedding, perhaps you can get a link to the, if it's a licensed link to the photographer's pictures, print them, present this to a bride and groom as a gift. I think anybody would be thrilled. In this case, I had enough paper where I was able to make a little vertical fold out on a couple of these. It was a special release and I had quite a bit of paper to work with, and that is addressed in the instructions as well. I think you're going to love this project and want to make more than one. So choose your kit once you master the project with the full craft along kit. Grab a second kit and make another. Thanks for joining me for another fun project. I hope you liked the photo drop box. And of course, consider a membership to Club Scrap. We'd love to have you join us and receive a page kit every month. With it, you can make 8 12 by 12 pages when you follow along with my video workshop and written instructions. but the world is your oyster, as we have tons of projects that you can adapt very, very easily following our instructions and videos that correspond with those projects as well. I'd love to have the opportunity to welcome you as a member of our Club Scrap family. We're a pretty tight, pretty fun group. Come and join us, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.